Welcome back to meeting number 15, and this is part 5 of the Animal Farm Review for B30. We're in chapter 9, and we talked about retirement in chapter 9, and we also talked about pension, well, briefly. The pension is on page 74, talked about what they would receive when they would retire. It would be 5 pounds of corn a day in the winter, 15 pounds of hay with a carrot, and possibly an apple on public holidays. All right. And Boxer's 12th birthday is coming along, so he's going to retire pretty soon. He is injured now as well. He's not healing as well. So will he make it to retirement? We don't know yet. So the Squealer states that okay, the animals are not getting as much food compared to what the pigs are getting, and so Squealer spins it, and he uses, and there's an italicized phrase here. They were in reality short of food. Okay, on page 75. So whatever the appearances might be. So if it looks like we don't have any food, no, that's not true. We have plenty of food. Okay. But if you don't investigate, you don't find validation or confirmation, stuff like that, you're going to take Squealer's word at it. So Squealer talks about readjustments instead of reductions. And I talked about that in my chapter 9 take up of what those readjustments are. We see that in our societies today. It's not a new concept. Politicians will use the term, we will consolidate, and all the divisions or departments into one label or one umbrella, and they're all going to work together. It's going to be seamless. It's going to be a lot easier to get information, and so on and so forth. But they don't tell the public of how much it's going to cost to change from, say, 18 departments to 1. Okay, it's expensive. There's going to be layoffs for some people. There's you're going to have to pay people out because they're on contract. That's going to cost you. You're going to have to rebrand, of course, and that's going to cost as well. Get all the letterheads changed, all the logos changed, the names of the facilities, buildings, stuff like that changed as well. So it's not a cheap thing to do. But you don't say reduction. You don't say reduction, and I don't recall any politician ever saying we're going to reduce anything. You might get lower, say the interest rates or stuff like that, but you will never rarely hear reduction. You might hear readjustment. You hear more consolidating or compression or reallocating is another term that's widely used. And when you know that that's happening, kind of take a look at the once it's done, once the reallocating is done, or the consolidating is done, or whatever. How much did it cost to get that all done compared to what it was like when you had 18 separate departments? Was there any savings of any kind? Especially, and that's before layoffs and so on and so forth. We have Napoleon's legacy mentioned here. He is a proud father of 31 young pigs that have been born, and so his legacy will continue on no matter what. Who do you think which history are they going to follow? Are they going to follow one from Old Major or Snowball or maybe the other animals, or will it be Napoleon's version or interpretation of history, of what happened and how animalism came to being? We have rations are cut back in order to maintain current political foothold on the situation in Animal Farm. So we have spontaneous demonstrations to distract the animals from their hunger, from all this readjustment that's taking place. And so it's on page 77. And whether you agreed or not to the spontaneous demonstrations, you had to go to these events because it was mandatory, because it's part of that nationalistic pride in your country, or in this case, Animal Farm. Napoleon is elected as president. Of course, there was nobody to run against him, and Animal Farm is proclaimed a republic as well. So very similar to what Hitler did in Germany. And we have Long Live Animal Farm in this regard, and of course Snowball's role is still used to a certain degree. Moses comes back from, I don't know where, doesn't even say where he went, but animal heaven is mentioned as well as a sign of hope for the animals, especially their plight. But the squealer downplays what animal heaven is. But why allow the preacher to, who is Moses the raven, why allow the preacher to remain on the farm if they're going to downplay it? Because it gives them hope, it keeps them going. And so as long as they are pacified, and because of Moses' talking about animal heaven, fine. But at the same time, they are worked to the bone. Boxer is warned again that if he continues to work the way he's doing, I will work harder. Napoleon's always right. It'll be the end of Boxer, but he doesn't pay attention, and he falls on page 79. And Clover cries for help, and so Napoleon makes arrangement to send Boxer to Wellington. Now, nobody's left the farm except for Molly and Snowball, and I guess if you want to include Moses the Raven, but he comes back. So the animals don't want to send Boxer to the humans because there's some mistrust of humans, especially after 2 battles and the rumors that they had spread as well. But Boxer needs help, so they have to let him go. And so they put him into a van. And this van has some writing on it. Well, how many of the animals can read? Well, hey, Benjamin can. Benjamin can. He is the most passive individual on the farm. He could have done many things during this this whole transition of events. He could have spoke up because he's one of the original animals on the farm, and he didn't say anything. He just let things go because he thinks things will change, and they always do, and so on and so forth. He talked about that earlier in the novel. And so he's shouting out, "Fools, fools!" shouted Benjamin, prancing around them and stamping the earth with his small hoofs. "Fools, do you not see what is written on the side of the van?" That's on page 81. And we find out that it was it says the van is the owner of Alfred Simmons Horse Slaughter and Glue Boiler. So Benjamin says, "They're taking you to the knackers. You got to get yourself out of there." But Boxer's too weak to get out. And unfortunately, we don't see Boxer ever again. And so 3 days later, on page 83, we find out that Boxer had died. And Napoleon said he was right by Boxer side in his final moments, and the last thing he said was, long live Animal Farm, long live Comrade Napoleon, Napoleon is always right. Okay, those were his last words, comrades, on page 83. So then the squealer has to explain the ban, and of course the animals buy it. So we move into chapter 10, and we'll be right back after these short messages.